Viva number 2. What does the Indus Valley Civilization tell us about the early development of complex societies? Although the Harappan civilization is not generally a precursor to classical history, learning about it can teach us a lot about all the ancient civilizations around the world. The Indus Valley Civilization can teach us about, first, how the culture of modern Indian society was highly influenced by the Harappan civilization. Secondly, how some of the technology developed in the Harappan civilization is still apparent around the world today. And thirdly, how looking at the ancient law codes can teach us a lot about the religion and society in the ancient Indian world. So first off, the Harappan civilization, which was located in the Indus Valley, settled along the rivers, plays a part in the modern Indian culture. Indian classical music has its roots in the early Indian civilization. There were also the origins of the classical instruments were found there. The Indian classical music was made out of patterns and rhythms that were repeated and memorized before played. They also had an 8-note music scale, which is similar to the Western music scales. The Harappan civilization left a little bit of writing, but there isn't enough to be interpreted because the civilization fell before the writing could be fully developed. So we can't really decipher a language that they were speaking back then in that part of the world. So they had also highly developed art, which had a large focus on children. They left human figures made out of clay, many of whom were women and children. This may have been because the mortality rate for women and children was very high because of pregnancy complications. There were also a lot of figures of children nursing. Children are mostly depicted as male, which shows that, not surprisingly, they liked boy children better than girl children. Jithin Veer says that, quote, "It is proposed that women were given a special place culturally in society due to their ability to produce offspring," unquote. The second point is that some Harappan inventions are still used in modern society. This ancient society was very technologically advanced. Many Harappan inventions are still common in India. For instance, the boats that were commonly used by the people have changed very little over the course of these centuries. They had highly complex and innovative city planning and water management. They had sanitation and sewer systems. Their homes even had a form of indoor plumbing. The houses are actually very similar to the modern homes that still exist in the Indus Valley. When John H. Linehart describes this civilization, he said, quote, "Indus dentists drilled and crowned teeth. Indus engineers built tidal locks and other sophisticated water management systems," unquote. And that is just a few of their many inventions. As I said before, Harappan cities were very technically organized. They had straight streets which were oriented in cardinal directions, showing that the people had an astronomical knowledge. They knew about the stars and such. These cities, with sometimes tens of thousands of people, had narrow streets that would branch off into different neighborhoods. They were very organized, as I said. They had brick houses which 2 stories high. They had thick walls and high ceilings. The cities would have a citadel in the center, where the important buildings were located, and there was also a great bath, where ritual bathing and religious ceremonies would take place. Water played a big part in the Harappan people's lives. The third point is that the Indian religion of Hinduism can be traced back to the Harappan civilization. This makes sense because the word Hindu was derived from a word meaning river. Some ancient legal traditions and codes, like the Law of Manu, even though the Law of Manu was only written in the 1st or 2nd century BC, can tell us a lot about the ancient life, even when there is no descriptive historical literature available. The law codes can tell us about what the customs and what society was like. So codes like the Law of Manu, which is one of the most ancient sources of knowledge as to this structure of society, tell us how successive waves of outsiders that moved into the civilization shaped India's religious caste system. An excerpt from the Law of Manu states that, quote, by adultery committed by persons of different castes, by marriages with women who ought not to be married, and by the neglect of the duties and occupations prescribed to each, are produced sons who owe their origin to a confusion of castes, unquote. So in short, confusing and mixing up the castes isn't good, either by adultery or by marriage between people of different statures. They didn't like that, and they thought it was the essence of sin and destruction. The ancient Indian society also appeared to have gender norms similar to those of other ancient cultures. Though perhaps not their daily life, law codes can give insight into the legal status of women. Indian women were under the guardianship of their male family members. A woman's marriage was like their second birth. They got a new name, and the religious rituals leading up to marriage shows that childbirth was the focal point of their life. Adultery was not punished as severely as in the other cultures, and there were definitely more divorce rights given for men. A woman did have a role and responsibility to sing hymns and to please her deities and to keep the sacred flame burning. Although the Harappan civilization is not actually part of Western history, learning about the Indus Valley Civilization can teach us a lot about ancient civilizations all over the world. First, the Harappan culture played a big part in influencing the modern Indian culture. Secondly, the technology that was invented during this time period is still apparent today. And thirdly, the religion of Hinduism in modern India has its origins in the Harappan civilization. Thank you.